Brodes Media.
I don't like what Howie Roseman did on Friday, and he knew you weren't going to like it either. That's why he decided to tell everybody Friday in the middle of the Phillies game, when everybody was disturbed by the disgrace that was. Come on, man. During WIP's broadcast of opening day, nobody could react legitimately until the following week begins. Howie knew exactly what he was doing. It was very methodical. They didn't just happen to call Joe Douglas and the New York Jets Friday afternoon and say, you know what? Yeah, let's do this now. And then they decided, yep, here's the terms. It'll be a draft pick in the year 2098. It'll be maybe a second-round pick, conditionals to it, conditional pick. We'll see what happens. All right, let's do it. No, man, they had this thing squared away days and days before they announced it, but it was all about let's make sure we lessen the blow because they were aware that they were losing a premier pass rusher and their best defensive player, which really does hurt my excitement because you got to realize when you have the season you did last year and you lose Jason Kelsey and you lose Fletcher Cox, it's hard to get the fan base back on your side as quickly as they did. But to their credit, they got us super pumped up. Saquon Barkley, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio. All right, you bring in a Bryce Huff, you get Josh Sweat back, and by the way, your owner not too long ago said this about Haason Redick, quote, "It'll play itself out in a very good way." Hold on a second. In a very good way. It's not maybe a second-round pick years from now. And if he is going to get you back a second-round pick in return, that means this dude balled out for the Jets. And if your mission and your objective is to be the best team in the NFC and to compete for a Super Bowl, win another championship, then if he balls out, you benefit more from having him on this team, doing it here in an Eagles uniform at the Link compared to doing it in the Jets uniform up at MetLife. So I think this is a disaster unless Howie Roseman somehow brings in another game wrecker premier talent at the position, but I don't anticipate that happening. He thinks Nolan Smith will rise to the occasion. I don't know if Nolan Smith is even going to have more than 5.5 sacks. If I set the number right now, and this is just me making up my own betting line here at Brodes Sportsbook, okay, and I said 5.5 sacks for Nolan Smith, I'm putting my entire savings account on the under. That's how much I think the under would be in play, and that's not good enough. You have to produce what Haason Redick produced blindfolded. He has a bad season, he gets 11 sacks. Bad season, 11 sacks. You don't realize what you're letting walk out the door. And here's another big-time question mark. It's not as if the Jets signed him to a big deal. So are they going to get the luxury of working with him on a year where he is going to get a contract afterwards, a prove-it deal type of situation where they are going to have him play motivated in a different city with the chance to get paid afterwards? And they're going to get the luxury of a $14 million cap, not ending up extending it. Now, maybe they do work out a deal in the very near future here and things change, but if you're looking at what the Eagles paid Bryce Huff, which is $17 million a year, if Haason Redick wants 25, the difference in 7-8 mil between Bryce Huff and Haason Redick is worth it to keep one of your best pass rushers. I don't think you realize what you're losing. With Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, and Bryce Huff, you have 4 complementary pieces. They like that kid Bond too, but Bond's not changing what I think this team could be and the idea of being a great football team. He's just a random guy. So at the end of the day, you have, I'd say Josh Sweat is a starter. Bryce Huff is a complimentary complimentary piece. Brandon Graham is on his last wheel. And who else? Nolan Smith is an unproven unknown that has a lot to go here. And I don't think that he's going to be a powerhouse. You lose a game record that teams put on film and say, we can't have him beat us. This guy can get you 30 sacks in 30-plus games. That's outrageous. You don't just find a way to get that in your NovaCare complex, so when it's here, you don't let them out of your sight. So to pick Josh Sweat or Bryce Huff over him is a disgrace. I saw a tweet from Derek Gunn. And this tweet was on March 27th, so a few days ago. But he says, Eagles are still deciding on what to do about Haason Reddick's situation. He still wants more money than the Eagles are willing to pay. As of now, if he were to return to the Eagles, he would play for what his contract currently states. So if you gave me an option where they traded him to the Jets for a third that maybe could be a second years down the road, or you go all in and you have an awesome rotation with the nice complimentary pieces that I just brought up, it's not that they're bad players, but they have specific roles. If you ask Josh Sweat to be more than what he's capable of doing, you're going to fail. You even actually saw a part of that last year with Haason Reddick here. So remove Haason Reddick from the equation, it's only going to get nastier and probably uglier for Josh Sweat, who cannot play a ton of snaps or else he falls apart significantly. Same probably will be said about Bryce Huff, because sure, he could pin his ear back and go, playing 42% of the snaps, and Bryce Huff is a good player. He's going to have sacks this season, but if he plays more snaps, is he going to have the same level of impact? Will he make the same level of impact if he doesn't have Haason Reddick on the field to apply pressure to the other team's offensive line? There's no fear the same way that there's fear in Haason Reddick right now. Decent players, okay players, NFL caliber players, but when you are trying to seriously win something and you have the aspirations to go win a championship, you need game-changing, game-wrecking talents, and you lost that big time on your defensive staff here. And it's ludicrous to me. Absolutely ludicrous. So if you gave me two options, you trade him for a second-round pick, or he comes back and plays with 1 year left on his deal, which he might end up doing with the New York Jets anyway, which Joe Douglas would have just absolutely destroyed Howie Roseman and pantsed him at his own game. This is the type of stuff that the Eagles do. DeAndre Swift comes in, hey, let's have a big, massive year, and then you can go get your money elsewhere. They did that with CJ Gardner-Johnson in the early stages of when he was here his first go around. Let's get him in here. All right. The New Orleans Saints don't want to pay him. All right, let's figure it out. That's what Howie does. And now Joe Douglas, who learned from Howie, is doing it and playing Howie's own game with Howie Roseman. And if the Jets do end up giving him money, good, it's a smart move. You should pay guys like Haason Reddick. It doesn't seem to me, from all the reporting, that Haason Reddick is asking to reset the market and demanding this insane amount of cash. He's asking to get paid market value. And if someone is so good enough to get paid market value, that's fine. Resetting the market, being the highest paid guy, wanting the fat bag, and that's the only thing on your mind, that's different than what it seems Haason Reddick wants. Haason Reddick wants fair pay. There's a difference between resetting the market and fair pay. If someone's asking for fair pay, then let Josh Sweat get the fuck out of here. Let somebody else get out of here. I'd rather have Haason Reddick for 2 years than Bryce Huff at his age now for X amount of years. You're devaluing what Haason Reddick is, and I think Howie Roseman screwed this thing up. I was on WIP last night, and after we got through the initial Phillies reaction, we did open up the discussion for the Eagles and brought this very same topic up, and the amount of people that said, let Howie cook, let Howie go, he probably has something up his sleeve. I hope he has something up his sleeve, and if that happens to be the case, then I'll say, okay, good stuff. But more times than not, if you're bringing in a premier player, they're going to get a premier premier amount of money. That's just what it is. And I think they completely butchered this, whether they think Nolan Smith is better than he is, whether they think Bryce Huff could do more with more snap counts. You don't just replace Haason Redick, though, and the emphasis that goes on him. If you're a team playing against the Eagles, you highlight Haason Redick big time, and you make it known that he cannot be getting to you. You have to be cautious of where he is at all times. You don't have to be cautious of Nolan Smith at all times. You don't have to be cautious of Josh Sweat at all times. When he hits a wall, he flat out becomes irrelevant. And we saw that happen last season. So yes, I'm very, very irritated for sure. And that's where I'm at with it.